Well, first off, good morning, everybody. This is Jeff Spalding, your police chief here. Maybe a couple thumbs up, make sure everybody can hear me okay. Great, thank you. You are signed into the Astoria Homeless Solutions Task Force, even though our reach expands beyond Astoria, and it seems like it's growing, so it's becoming more of a countywide type thing, even though we're not the only ones having this conversation. So I consider that a good thing, since we're all dealing with a lot of the same clientele. So, but anyway, just officially call the meeting to order at 10:02. And I wanted to touch on, just give everyone a heads up that we're doing our minutes a little bit differently today. At all of the previous meetings we've had over the last 4 years, we've had different individuals help out doing the minutes, and I've been very much appreciative of that. We do have the technology now that we are on Zoom for the meeting to be automatically recorded, which it is, so that the recording is available to anybody that wasn't able to make it or anybody that wants to go back and review anything that we talked about. Additionally, we are going to have the meeting minutes from the recording transcribed through a transcription service that the city uses, similar to what they do for some of the other city meetings. So I think that'll allow us to have more comprehensive notes and also get those done a little bit sooner. So those will be posted on the city's website, in addition to me forwarding those out to all of our members and guests that I have emails for. So just a little heads up there. First off, I want to go through our roster and just mark off the people that I know are here. So going down, Teresa, I did see you. Jonah, I know, are you there, Jonah? Okay, Jonah was coming from another meeting, so he's going to be joining us in a little bit here. Sean, I see Sean. Jennifer Holland, are you there? Okay, Scott Justice. Okay, I see you, Scott. Thank you. Jared, I saw you. Arlene, I see you. Viviana, I see you. Amy is not here, and Shira, are you here on Amy's behalf? Okay, Shira and Marilla may be joining us on behalf of Amy Baker from CBH. Let's see here. Mike Davis said that he would not be able to join us today. He's working on some finishing touches, adding a couple hundred beds to their Portland facility, the Bobby Lakes Hope Center. Lisa McLean will not be here today. Abby Welter is here on her behalf. I see Abby. Thanks, Abby. Ozark from Beacon Clubhouse, are you here? Or actually Lifeboat Services?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Let's see, Jan from Riverfolk. Okay, Susan, I see you. David Reed.
I'm here.
Okay, gotcha, thank you. I do see Councilor Rocca, I did see you. Looks like I'm here. Monica, I did see you. Terry Steenbergen Harbor.
Hi, Jessica Klein is here on Terry's behalf.
Okay, thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
And let's see, Jessamine, I did see you, so that's great. Okay, well, good turnout. You know, these things are always interesting, and you know, as I'm putting the agenda together towards the beginning of the week, I'm thinking, God, I hope we have enough information to talk about and, you know, put out there. Now I'm worried about us getting everything done in 2 hours. So it's amazing how quickly things can change, but to me, that's good. It's good we're having discussions. It's encouraging the turnout we have with this significant concern in our community. So thank you all for being here, members and guests alike. Shire, I see you joined in. Good morning and welcome. Thanks for covering for Amy. One other thing I do want to remind, for the most part, many of our guests, we do have a slate of members, and the members, on the rare occasion that we take a vote, is where the members weigh in. The discussion generally is amongst the members, but that's not to mean that we want to exclude guests. It's just to keep the conversation somewhat orderly. Everybody will have a chance to speak. either after each item, depending on how we're doing on time, or at the end of the meeting. We always reserve time to make sure that any of our guests have an opportunity to bring up a topic of interest or weigh in on a previous topic that we've had a chance to discuss. So just want to make sure everybody is clear on that. So with that being said, we are going a little bit out of our normal protocol. We've had some recent events here that we'd like to have a conversation about and some concerns that we'd like to address. And I'm going to turn it over to the mayor. And Mayor, in place of your normal introduction, if you want to kick off the non-agenda item, and then I think we were going to tag team that. So it's your floor.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. So just to sort of reset the baseline for maybe some of our guests and new members, this group was formed to serve as a communications and coordination forum for all of the individuals and organizations that have roles to play in addressing some aspects of the homelessness issue in our community. That includes those who assist with finding housing, food, mental health care, drug and alcohol addiction treatment, and employment and job skills training, law enforcement, public safety, and it includes nonprofits, local business owners, individuals, county government, city government, and private citizens. And the group's goals include the full spectrum from, on the one hand, assisting those who are homeless to not being homeless, to assisting businesses and individuals who are being negatively impacted by some of those who are homeless or transient population. And among this group's accomplishments to date has been assisting with the creation of the 2 full-time homeless liaison positions. And you're going to hear a progress report on those positions today. And clearly, for an entire county as large as ours, 2 people cannot promptly address all concerns every time, but it is a very good start. And additionally, I just want to always reiterate that the members of this task force are the people who every day are making incremental progress in the whole variety of services and programs that I just listed. And these successes are rarely news. Successful interventions do not get Facebook posts, but every meal that's delivered, every mental health intervention, every person whose utility costs are covered by CCA, et cetera, are the reason that our homeless population is what it is in Astoria and not double or triple this size. Dealing with the highly visible negative behavior associated with a minority of our transient or homeless population often falls to CBH or our police officers. And virtually every one of the so-called frequent flyers are very well known to our dedicated police officers who are out there on the streets every single day interacting personally with these individuals. The challenges in answering the question that city councilors get, why aren't you doing something about it, have been discussed in this group and at city council meetings countless times. At the global level, until our federal and state government adequately fund mental health care and addiction treatment, many of these problems, frankly, are not ever going to go away. At the local and individual level, it bears repeating that there's a wide gap between language and behavior that we all agree is offensive and language and behavior that is illegal and for which people can be arrested. Lately, there has been a surge in business owner and resident complaints about unacceptable behavior, especially around 11th Street and that vicinity. As a result of these concerns being brought to our attention, Chief Spalding, who serves as the chair of this task force, has met with the Astoria Downtown Historic District Association. That was at the November 5 meeting, has addressed City Council, has met with the operators of Lifeboat Services, which operates both Filling Empty Bellies and Beacon Clubhouse at 1040 Commercial. A little bit earlier this year, the county manager and assistant county manager and I went and toured Lifeboat Services facility, met with the managers, both of whom expressed a sincere desire to meet directly with any local business owners who are concerned about their programs or the behavior of any of their clients. And Chief Spalding will speak in more detail about what the police can and cannot do regarding offensive behavior. a few of the complaints I've received this week have been about people who are not customers, but are camping out on businesses, tables or chairs, outside tables or chairs, or coming repeatedly into businesses and disrupting services or customers. And I would highly recommend that business owners post their outdoor tables and chairs as for customers only. And if you cannot get a non-customer to move, at that point, since you've posted it, you can contact the police to have them trespassed. And the same would apply to people that are coming into your business. If they've been disruptive and you've asked them to leave, call the police and you can have them trespassed. We have been asked by numerous business owners and residents, why did the city allow lifeboat services to locate downtown? The services that are provided by lifeboat services are outright allowed uses. They were not required to ask the city's permission to lease that particular space or provide those services at that location. It's an outright allowed use. Serving meals, just like for a restaurant, is an outright allowed use in a commercial district. Filling empty bellies, Beacon Clubhouse, both provide vitally needed mental health services and food security services in our community. We need those services, and I support both those organizations. I would urge any of our concerned citizens or business owners to reach out to the managers, Ozark and Aaron, directly and speak with them about your concerns. And so with that introduction, I'd like to turn it back to Chief Spaulding.
Thank you, Mayor. That was a great introduction to the topic. I know there's some of the things that I'll share, I've shared before, but some of it does bear repeating. And I've also, just so everyone knows, on the call, I also have Senior Officer Kenny Hansen, who's our homeless liaison, also a member of our homeless task force. So I may ask Kenny to weigh in. Also, Sergeant Andrew Randall is on the call in case there's questions. Both of these individuals have all the practitioner related experience on the road and can probably better answer some of the questions that I can't. So I've asked them to be, well, Kenny would have been here, but I've asked Sergeant Randall to be here as well. He's also the one that spearheaded the very successful Property Watch program, which many of the business owners here on the call are very familiar with and has assisted you with. So they will both be available for questions. I think one of the things that does come up frequently is, what are the police doing about some of the issues? And as I've said from day one, I do feel like we are caught in the middle oftentimes because there's an expectation from certain members of the community that the police are out there enforcing what they see as behavioral issues related to people that are homeless. And then there's the other side that believe that we should be providing services. Well, on some level, technically, we are not a social service agency, but I think, policing has morphed over the years into somewhat of a social service agency where we get those calls. And when people don't know who to call, they call their police department. We're okay with that, but at the end of the day, we're not always the best equipped to deal with some of the issues that we're having. And so we will, use our partners, like CBH, CMH, and a lot of the other three-letter acronyms to, to assist us. And someday, I think there's kind of a groundswell effort to move more towards a response from our social service professionals who are better equipped to handle lots of these types of calls. But in the meantime, we're getting those calls, and we do everything we can with our limited resources to address the calls and handle them as low profile as possible. Many times, though, that what we see, or at least what we hear, does not rise to the level of a crime. There was a time when you could be prohibited from loitering, for example. That was ruled unconstitutional many years ago. Many years ago, there was a time when you couldn't use obscenities in the streets. There was municipal ordinances that protect or provided that, you could enforce someone using foul language or catcalls and those types of things. Those are now constitutionally protected activities. So simply hanging out, loitering, sitting on public benches, making people feel uncomfortable, having to walk around individuals, those are not activities that we as a law enforcement agency can prohibit. The types of things, of course, we can prohibit are the trespassing violations that the mayor mentioned, Other quality of life crimes, the defecation, the urination, the use of marijuana in public, the smoking, the alcohol use, those types of things which are common among some individuals. Those are the types of things we can enforce, obviously, as we observe them. So, so I just want to make it clear what we can and what we can't do. When we hear about some of the concerns that are occurring downtown and the increased activity, we feel like on some level our hands are tied. And there's the bigger issue too of even when we're in a position to enforce some of the laws, our ability is pretty much for the types of offenses we're talking about are violation level offenses, some cases misdemeanors, but generally we're talking about a citation. And even if we're able to take somebody to jail for a low-level offense, which we do have some ability to do, the jail doesn't have the capacity to simply keep people there for any period of time. We had an example a couple weeks back where an individual was lighting a fire downtown. We contacted him, had some communication with him. He became irate and angry, ended up kicking the door of our police car, causing $2,000 worth of damage. We took him to jail. He was out of jail within 15 minutes. And so we are just as frustrated as many individuals in our community are. And this is not a fault of the jail. I am in no way throwing the county under the bus. It's simply a capacity issue. Monica Steele and I spoke about this morning, and she actually had an opportunity to speak with the sheriff and get a good understanding of the situation at the jail. And I think this would be the appropriate time to turn this part of it over to Monica and then to talk a little bit about the jail issue and then come back to me and then we can continue the conversation. Good morning, Monica. You're trying to find the button to unmute.
Sorry, Chief. For some reason, all of a sudden my screen got hidden. Yes, so I did talk to the sheriff this morning just to kind of get a better idea of some of the issues that we are facing regarding the jail. And it's not to say that we don't want to be able to address some of these low-level crimes, but right now our jail capacity is limited to 40 people. And a part of that, typically we're only in the existing jail, we're only able to house 60 people, but because of the COVID restrictions right now, that's limited to 40. And the people that we have in there right now are our Measure 11 offenses. And what that means is we have people, for example, an individual who has 37 cases, counts against them for rape, sodomy, sex abuse, and child porn. We have kidnapping, murder, assault of a safety officer, felony DUI, luring a minor, and sexual online corruption. So it's a variety of crimes that are high-level crimes versus low-level crimes. And it's not to say that we don't want to be able to address those other issues, but right now we're just limited in what we are able to continue to house in the facility. You know, we are optimistic once the new jail comes online next year that we will have more capacity to be able to address some of these issues. But at this point in time, this is the constraints that we're faced with.
Thank you, Monica. I appreciate that. So getting back to what we can do, I think one of our most effective tools is trespassing violations. Once, especially for our business owners or anybody even in a personal residence, if somebody is on your property against your wishes, you've asked them to leave, that's when law enforcement will get involved. You call us, we make contact with the individual, we handle it at the lowest level possible, ask them to leave. If they're not cooperative, they can be issued a citation, in some cases could be taken to jail. The person, if you don't want them back at all for a business owner, you simply let us know that. We take a police report, document it, that person's been told that they're not welcome to be on that property. And if they return, they would be instantly either receive a citation or taken to jail. This is one of the tools we have for individuals that aren't welcome on your property. We're not a big police force. It was evident from the survey we did last spring that many individuals in our community felt that we had anywhere from 4 to 11 police officers on duty at any given time. I'm glad that perception is out there, but that's not the reality. We don't have a big police force, but we do rely on our partners very heavily. And so I would say that the officers spend a lot of their time going day to day in between handling calls for service, but doing the reports afterwards. So they are very busy. We do ask them to spend some time in between calls and when they have discretionary time to drive in the areas and observe behavior. But we do rely on our community to call us when you're observing something. So, the other thing that we have talked about, we've talked with the mayor and the rest of council, is the potential to bring back to council a proposal for an exclusion zone. And that's something we talked about last year. And that may be something that council might be interested in, which basically identifies an area where we're seeing a higher than usual level of bad behavior or activity. And an individual that commits a certain amount of behavior-related offenses within a certain period of time could be excluded from that particular area. So that may be another tool that council will consider. More to follow on that as we go down the road here. Officer Hanson or Sergeant Randall, have I missed anything here that you'd like to chime in on briefly?
No, I think you covered it well, Chief.
Yeah, nothing for me, Chief.
Thank you, gentlemen. So at this point, I think it'd be appropriate for at least to start with the membership. Are there any other thoughts or questions or concerns related to this particular topic that you'd like to bring up?
Chief, this is Monica, and I do just want to add, because I forgot to mention it before, but I know that there's a perception that the homeless population is the root of a lot of the safety issues that we're having. And I did just want to add that of those housed in jail right now, approximately 90% of those are our resident population, not so much our transient population. So I do just want to reiterate that piece as well.
Thank you, Monica. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I think it'd be, oh, Councilor Rocca, did I see your hand?
Yeah, I just put it up. I guess I would chime in with this now, and it's not anything new, but I think my feelings about this were solidified even further after having a long talk with Amy Baker as part of an interview for KMUN. And I asked Amy, what if she had a whole lot of money? If she had all the money she could think of that she wanted, what would she do with it? And she said she would have to start with housing. And the reason is that for her and for the other agencies that we have, you can do the best possible job you can do in terms of mental health when people are in the office. But then if they have to go back out on the street after that appointment, they are back at Maslow's bottom level of meeting needs. Where do I sleep tonight? Where can I get something to eat? Where can I go to the bathroom? Where can I get water? And so all of that other stuff that you're trying to accomplish doesn't stick, or doesn't stick the way you would like it to stick. I think a lot of this is going to come back not on our agencies, but it comes back on the cities and the county, and maybe to some degree to the state. And I mentioned this last time, and Monica brought up a good point that we deal with NIMBYism, and it's something that that makes lots of things difficult, but it can't make them impossible until we find a place where we can tell homeless people that they can be, and where we can provide services for them. All of these other problems are going to continue. The police can't say, you can't be here, if we don't have a there where they can be. And those kinds of things keep multiplying and keep coming back and biting us over and over and over. And at some point we have to say, wait, this is not going to stop until we do that thing that we need to do. And that is to find a place where we can actually take care of the homeless population. And then Ozark won't have to do what he does downtown. If we have that place, he can provide meals to that place. The other agencies can provide services to that place. We need that place. So that's my 10 cents.
Thank you, Councilor. I appreciate that. I'd see Kate Allen. You're muted, Kate.
Oh, I was just giving a big thumbs up to Councilor Rocca's knowledgeable and heartfelt statement. The reason, you know, the solution to homelessness is housing. So, amen.
Thank you, Kate. Arlene? You're muted too.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks. Rick Bowers and I were invited along with some ministers from Astoria to tour the new building, or the building that the Presbyterian Church has purchased to put in low-cost housing and affordable housing. It's the old Malternative building. So we toured that. There's actually 18,000 square feet in that building, four floors, including the basement. It's in much better shape than the Merwin, for instance, that when we toured that before they began renovating that, it was in incredibly poor shape. This is in much better shape than that. They estimate that they will be able to house 60, 70 people in that building. And the building, they're going to build a new building as well next door, which is now a parking area. And so there'll be a lot of space. It looks like, you know, the studs and the beams and so forth seem to be in pretty good shape. So I think that's a really hopeful sign. They hope to get Julie Garver and the group that renovated the Merwin to be the developer for that particular building. I think it shows great promise, and it is right across the street. A lot of the businesses downtown have said one of the problems of getting staffing, and we know everybody's having trouble getting staffing, is that there's no housing. And if they don't have, especially if they don't have a car. And so this particular building is on Marine Drive. It would be right across the street from a lot of businesses along the riverfront. So I have great hope that this may help alleviate our housing needs.
Okay, great. Thank you, Arlene. I appreciate that. Rick?
I just wanted to comment, Jeff, you'll remember when I read the stuff for our Warrenton Warming Center, which no longer happens, I went to Matt, our police chief, and I said that I thought if the homeless could, in Fairy Tale, had all the mental health help they needed, that our call volume would drop by about 40%. And at that time, you said that you thought it would also. I just wanted to translate that into how much money is being pushed at that. You wouldn't have to push there if you could put it somewhere else. So that is the cost of doing nothing, basically. So
Yeah, no,
translate that into dollars.
No, I appreciate that. And also I appreciate the articles you continuously send me. A lot of good information out there, and I appreciate that. Shira, do you want to speak at all to that? I know that there's been some conversations about some future hopes and not ready for prime time, but is there anything that you'd like to share along those lines?
As far as like our mobile crisis expansion plan.
Right.
Yeah, I think that, CBH is equally invested in having behavioral health responses to behavioral health needs and being able to allow law enforcement to respond to issues that really require a law enforcement response. We're hopeful that we will be getting enough funding to bring on an additional 2, potentially 4. We're calling them like law enforcement mobile crisis liaisons. The name may not stick. We may find something better. But our plan is to embed qualified mental health professionals with law enforcement units so they can actually be there on site and be available to be more responsive to the needs in the community. I think part of the challenge that we've seen, and Chief, you'd probably agree, is just that like in the moment when law enforcement is responding to something, it takes time to call our mobile team. And it's a large county and we're not funded to be really well staffed. And so if that person is on the other side of the county, is it really worth calling a mobile crisis clinician to come and support them if it's going to take 35 minutes for them to get there? You know, we try to be as quick as possible, but with limited resources, it's challenging. So we are hoping that this additional funding is going to come through and we will be able to provide more behavioral health support to our law enforcement units.
Thank you, Shar. I appreciate that update. And I know this isn't quite ready for prime time and it's, you know, hopefully it'll come to fruition. So yeah, thank you for that early update. And that sounds promising. And we really appreciate your good partnership working with us on those things. Yeah, Sean, I know you have a question for Arlene. Did you want to pose that now?
Sure, if I could. Arlene, thank you for discussing the proposed housing that the Presbyterian Church is trying to do in the old alternative building. I'm wondering if they discussed what the cost to provide that housing will be and where that money will come from and where they will find the people to do the labor necessary to make the building suitable to provide housing.
Hi, Sean. Yeah, I don't know the answers to those questions, really. I know that they were, it's not going to be an inexpensive project, that's for sure. But one of the most positive signs, I think, is that if Julie Garver and the company from Portland can be the ones that are involved doing it, because they've had a lot of experience. They have developed the Merwin, and then they also got the contract for one down in Lincoln City. So they're learning a lot as they go along, and Julie has so many contacts to get federal funding and so forth. Pastor Bill Van Nosteren at the Presbyterian Church was saying that just to the forms that you have to fill out and the hoops that you have to jump through to get federal funding are daunting. And unless you have had years and years of experience doing it, you just want to throw your hands up in the air and forget it. Julie won't do that. She's dogged, she's experienced, and she knows how to get money from the feds, and she's done it successfully. So like I said, we have our fingers crossed that she will actually be the one that steps in and says, yes, they will develop it. She was hesitant because they were doing this work down in Lincoln City, and they didn't want to compete against one and the other. They knew that the state would not give, and the feds would not provide, wouldn't support 2 projects by the same developer. But now the Lincoln City is on the way, it's being constructed, so she feels as though she can devote her time to this new project. Does that answer your question?
Well, somewhat. I am familiar with Julie and what she has done at the Merwin. She's done an excellent job, and yes, they do have a good track record. I'm as a person who provides housing and understands financing, I'm always concerned about what something is going to cost, what the alternatives obviously would be, and of course what we're dealing with right now, which is where to find the people who are willing and capable of doing the work that needs to be done, which is a major stumbling block to getting any housing built at this time. And I'm speaking from experience on that right now. So
Right.
always wondering about the costs and also their time frame for when they might anticipate that could move forward. So thank you, Arlene, for your response.
The only thing I would add is that they have someone coming in the next few weeks to go through the entire building, and they're going to take photos of every single beam, every single window, every single window well, and so forth. And then they will have something really concrete to study, and then can release some kind of, or can come to some kind of figures in terms of the expense. So that still is to come. And you know, as far as when they would start or whatever, that all depends on federal funding and also all the paperwork that has to be filled out prior to that. But they would hope and they could begin in the spring, but that's, you know, maybe optimistic.
All righty. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Arlene.
Thank you, Arlene.
Yeah.
At this point, I'd like to open it up to anybody in the Zoom room here that would like to share any concerns or thoughts or creative solutions to addressing some of the issues, especially that we're seeing downtown. I did speak with Oz this morning. I know Oz is more than welcome to, more than happy to meet with anybody to discuss this further. We're going to be setting up a couple of smaller group meetings, but I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be heard on this topic. Okay. Seeing crickets, Mayor, do you want to close that topic out for now, and we can always come back to it later?
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's a few people, guests that are participating in the call today that had emailed City Council. So again, feel free if you'd like to speak now to use the raise hand feature and make a comment. But if you're not comfortable doing that now, I totally understand. And you can come back to it at the end of the meeting. We'll ask for public comment as well. So that'd be a good time to raise your hand again if you don't want to now. Otherwise, let's move on to the normal agenda. Thanks, Chief.
Well, actually, Mayor and Chief, this is Joan Herman, who serves on the City Council.
Okay.
I was waiting to see if any business owners wanted to speak, but I do have a comment that I would like to make related to this specific topic. I think it's important, yes, that we have compassion, but I am very concerned about the small business owners downtown who also are trying to put food on the tables for their families. I'm a former small business owner downtown, and I know what a shoestring most businesses operate on. And if potential customers are concerned about their safety, whether it's real or not, real concerns or not, they may not go into that business. So my question is, can't we hold, or shouldn't we hold individuals accountable for bad behavior? Does having a mental illness preclude that? And I don't want to come off as sounding naive, but I think it's really important that we keep in mind, again, that we are talking about small business owners on a shoestring, trying to provide something positive for the community. So that's essentially what I wanted to say.
Yeah, Councilor Herman, and I do see two hands raised. Andrea, I see you. Abby, I see you, and I'll get back to you guys in just a second here. One thing I would like to say is that from day one, we of course are an enforcement agency, but we understand that that's not always a solution, especially in some of these cases, especially when we have limited tools anyway. One of the things I think is important is we had a recent case where we had an individual that was causing a lot of problems in the community and wasn't getting assistance. And we we're trying to decide the best path forward, and do we send it to the district attorney's office to consider prosecution? It was a kind of a trespassing, more of a disorderly conduct type offense. I reached out to Amy Baker and I said, Amy, here's what we got. I know you've dealt with this individual. You know, is this going to help you or do more harm to get this person into the criminal justice system? Amy said, you know what, we've tried, we haven't been successful getting this person help. We think this is the best course, you know, proceed along that route, and getting that person into the criminal justice system will facilitate getting her into mental health services. So, you know, even though we talk enforcement, we talk about, you know, sometimes we have to use these tools, you know, it doesn't mean we like to do it, but oftentimes it's the path forward to get people the help that they need. A little bit of tough love, I guess you can call it, but so just, you know, just wanted to throw that out there. So, Councilor Herman, anything else on that before I open it up? And Brittany, I see your hand too, so I will get back to you.
No, Chief, and I just want to emphasize that I really appreciate your accessibility, the hard work of your officers to do what they can within the constraints that they face. I was stating the we to mean all of us. This shouldn't just be put on the police.
Yeah, agree. And I think you'll all look forward to the conversation we're going to have a little bit here on some of the conversations we've had dealing with our homeless liaisons and some of the work that we've been doing on that topic. So stay tuned later in the meeting here. There's some good stuff coming out. Andrea.
Hi, if I haven't introduced myself before, my name's Andrea. I own Gizmos, the arcade that's on the corner right next to Lifeboat. And I'm really happy to be here to listen to everyone's conversation. You know, it helps flesh out what I read in the paper every day. And I didn't speak up at first because I've kind of come to the conclusion over the past month to just have to kind of be resolved to it is the way it is. Because I feel like there really isn't an avenue. I guess I should back up. Being that we are an arcade and a family place and right next to Lifeboat, we have seen a drastic uptick in the matter of incidences over the past month or two, especially as the weather's gotten rainier and colder, which I've talked to Chief Spalding about last weekend, kind of culminating in having to get rid of our picnic tables. And it's difficult because I am a newer business owner, so I'm learning the ropes of owning a business as well as having to deal with this situation. And I know I should have put signs on our picnic tables for customers only, but I hesitated to do that because I know Busu and the coffee house also use them, and I'm not opposed to that. Anyway, long story short, I was just fed up, so I took them down. But we do have things on a daily basis, not always escalating to police needing to be called, not needing to even call the CCA or anything like that. It's just general anxiety that it creates for our staff, especially on the weekends when we're very busy and we have to do our jobs, you know, making food, dealing with customers in our business. And to just have this constant like awareness of like, okay, who just came in the door? What exactly are they doing? I don't know. My biggest fault that I get from customers that they say my biggest fault is I'm too nice. I'm too nice. I do let people come in to use the bathroom. I'd rather have them use our bathroom than go on the side of the building. Like I'm sympathetic. I get told I'm too nice all the time. So I don't know what my recourse is. A lot of times, if my employees call the cops, it's not always a situation I would have called for, but I'm not there in the moment, you know, to tell them, hey, let's try other avenues or whatever. The problem is a lot of those decisions get made in a few seconds, you know, and a lot of solutions that everybody here is talking about are systemic and long-term and have to go through the tiers of calling Lifeboat or CBH. And in those seconds when I have to make a decision, I don't have time to think about that. You know, it's this person all of a sudden went from being kind of, you know, okay, something's going on with this person to they're being really aggressive towards my staff and I have to make a decision. So, and I know that's not a long-term solution. It's just the position I'm in, and it's frustrating. And I'm happy that the community is also being welcomed to these meetings so we can come up with some solutions. But as far as, you know, what Jeff asked as creative solutions, I don't have any. So that's why, you know, I didn't raise my hand. I don't have any. The housing, low income housing is great. I mean, I know employees I have probably still couldn't afford some of it for what their starting rates are. And those are kids that are working real hard to try to make it in this really expensive town. And I don't even know how that would begin to address the problem with a lot of the transient population, where a lot of it is mental health and addiction. And I come saying that as someone who has a sibling who is addicted to meth and has been transient for 5 years. So I'm sympathetic, but I'm also trapped because we are a business that has kids, and I hate seeing kids have to walk through, you know, they don't understand systemic things, you know, they're just like, they feel awkward coming in, and I hate to see that. And I don't know what a good solution is, but thanks for letting me voice my frustrations.
Thanks, Andrea, for your comments. It was very thoughtful.
Agree. And you're not too nice. You're just right. So, Brittany, I see your hand up.
Excuse me. Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm an employee of Caring for the Coast. I am the administrator here, and we work with elderly and disabled in the community, also providing services. One thing I did want to start out by saying is I don't think that this is an issue of lifeboat. I think, as we've all talked today, that this is more of just a nationwide issue, honestly. And I do not wish to see that lifeboat move or stop services. And I do not think that they can be accountable for their clients outside of their business. I just don't think that's something that they can control. And I don't always know the names of these people to bring up issues to them or to even feel comfortable to explain the situation to the owner, because I don't feel like it's necessarily their fault. I think it's an issue, like we've all talked about today, of mental health services being lacking and an issue of having the resources in the community to provide help to the people who need it. I just want to say that I do see, and I'm not naive to the fact that we have a lot of people in the community who are at risk, who are struggling, and who need help. And as my position here, I service a lot of those people in the community and act as an advocate for them, trying to find resources through CBH, trying to find resources through the community. And I like that you have started this meeting, and I would like to be a part of it going forward, just because I feel like it's a huge problem in our community. And I feel like together we can all find solutions. I think somebody had said earlier that, you know, the unacceptable behavior, and I don't expect police to get involved in every single situation. There are actual emergencies that do need that attention rather than some of the things that we deal with. But I do think that some of the unacceptable behavior is destroying some of our small businesses. In the fact that I had a potential employee for the office come in a few days ago, and they did not feel comfortable working here because of the parking, or they wanted to walk out in pairs. And myself, I don't feel comfortable walking the 3 blocks to get to my car by myself, especially when it's dark in the evening or in the morning. And I know my employees here feel the same. So walking in pairs is really important for us, and being able to see each other coming in and out of the business. We've also seen our clients who will just honk and stop traffic in the middle of the street for us to come out and get their bills so they can make the payment, instead of parking to come in because they don't like the area. So I just feel like some of the behavior that's happening is detrimental. I don't feel like every person or the homeless population in general is detrimental. I think it's the behaviors of the yelling, screaming, cursing, threatening the employees that are local here are the issue. And I do want to see that resolved. And I think that the mental health aspect plays a huge role into that. And I know that. And if there's anything that we can do as a community to make the services greater in the area, you know, I would love to be a part of that, because I feel like it's greatly needed, and not just here in Astoria, but I also know Seaside and Warrenton as well.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate that. I'm going to go off script here just for a second. And I do see, Teresa, I see your hand raised. I think, I believe that Abby, your hand might have been raised, but I do want to allow Monica to weigh in. She has an 11 o'clock meeting, but she'd also like to address a couple issues and give her a quick update, and then we will come back to this topic. And I also want to allow Ozark to respond to some of these as well. So stay tuned. Monica?
Thanks, Chief. Yeah, I do have an 11 o'clock, and in fact, because I'm down at the Association of Oregon Counties Conference to talk about housing is at my 11 o'clock meeting. So I think it's kind of good timing. But I just wanted to provide an update in regards to the county did receive $7.8 million in ARPA funds that are to be used through December of 2024 or to be obligated by 2024. And so I just wanted to kind of provide an update. Some of you have heard this before, but also for those who are new to this group, and let you know that Shira spoke to it earlier, and the county's working on drafting a contract for providing funding over the next 4 years for that mobile crisis team. Obviously, this funding is only for 4 years, and figuring out moving forward where those additional funds will come from will be a high priority as well. But that is something that we're working on the contract now, and then that will be going before the board. Something else that we're working on with those ARPA funds is funding for navigation centers, sorry, just drew a blank. Navigation centers, emergency shelters, and then other nonprofit funding such as for CCA. And those who provide social services. And so we're working with the board. We've gone before them a couple times to draft a concept funding to be able to allocate funds over the next 4 years for services that they provide, more specifically for the capital maintenance of their facilities. And that's part of the problem that that we run into in all of the cities, and it's not easy, and it's part of the discussion right now is providing these services, but where to provide those services at that is going to be accepted within the community. And so we do want to work with the community, the businesses, the residents in trying to address how we can meet the needs of everybody, because the other piece of it is we do have ARPA monies allocated for housing. The county also has county-owned lands, and we are going to be working with AOC and a housing technical consultant in drafting an RFI for low-income housing developers to see how we might best use those lands, recognizing that there are all types of housing needs. It's the term affordable housing means something different to everybody. Same with low income or workforce housing, but there's other types of housing needs such as transitional, somebody who's moving off of the street that isn't necessarily ready to move into an apartment, and what that might look like, such as pallet homes is a common theme that I know Ron has spoken to before. And as well as permanent supportive housing, because the other piece of it is these individuals who are having these mental health crises on the streets, that happens in the apartments that they live in as well. And part of the reason why some of these individuals are on the streets is because landlords can't always manage those mental health crises. And so eviction happens because it's disruptive for their other tenants. And so trying to have those permanent supportive wraparound services in a housing environment is essential as well. And so the county is continuing to work with AOC, work with our community partners, work with our cities to try and figure out how we can best find a solution for all of this, as well as making sure that we are not doing anything that is going to create more distinction among the community members. And so I will say, being at a conference, it's always nice to try and get perspective that it's not something that is unique to Clatsop County, as we all know. And so just trying to hear other solutions that other counties are trying, and continuing to work together to try and find solutions. So I will also say one other thing that we are looking at for the ARPA funds is childcare, because while we have a number of people who are currently on the streets, we also have a number of people who are on the verge of being unhoused because of not being able to work, because they are unable to find childcare. And so that is something else that we've set aside ARPA funds for. I know that the city of Astoria is working diligently on that project as well. And so that being said, if there's any questions for me, I have a few minutes before I have to take off, and I'd be happy to answer. All right, if none, I appreciate you letting me go, Chief, and thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you for the next meeting.
Thank you, Monica, and I appreciate you adjusting your other meeting to spend some time with us today, so I much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so coming back to the other topic, let's see, not Brittany, but Andrea, you spoke, so I think Teresa.
Oh, hi, everybody. I'm Teresa with the Astoria Warming Center. So I just want to thank everyone for their comments, you know, and just something that I want to say and just keep reminding us all, something that I've kind of seen as a narrative that's been playing out since I've been working with the Warming Center, is this kind of sense that it's like people like me, like the Warming Center, like Lifeboat, sort of almost opposed to business owners, you know, like we're on two different sides. And the thing that I've learned, and that I want to just say anytime that I have an opportunity to, is that I see me on the same side as business owners. You know, the Warming Center is a member of the ADHDA. We're downtown, we're members of this community. And the more that we fund places for people to stay, as Councilor Rocca said, then the more that you can enforce people breaking laws and being in places that you know, are affecting local businesses. You know, that Lifeboat is currently one of the only places that people can actually hang out during the day legally, that they can be. And so, you know, as long as they're the only place, then I think they're going to keep, that's where people are going to be. You know, and that I get that when we think about putting money into housing, when we think about funding permanent year-round shelter and navigation centers, I'm really frugal, and I know that it's like these $1 million price tags, these huge costs for renovation seem like so much, but they're not only cheaper than what we're currently doing, they're actually working us toward a solution. You know, that besides the fact that we can't, as Chief Spalding was saying, there a lot of times you can't just take people off to jail. You can't just, like, you know, put them in kind of mental health care program, that it's also just it's not working to anything long term. And so that, you know, if we have more places that people can legally be, then that's going to benefit all of our business owners and people that are trying to live downtown, tourists, and the local economy. So, sense.
Great. Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate that perspective. So Oz, would you like to talk about what's going on behind the curtain?
I'd just like to start by thanking you, Jeff Spalding, and Mayor Bruce Jones, for your continued support and understanding with this this thing we're dealing with. Homelessness, as we know, is not going to go away anytime soon. And I mean, we're doing our best here, and I invite anyone in the community to come on down and visit us at Lifeboat Services when we're creating and build relationships while we're eating a meal downstairs. Help the community get to know some of our houseless population, and maybe it'll be a little less scary. Maybe, you know, be able to figure out how to go ahead and help support us to help the whole community. Yeah, I mean, I just want to continue saying that communication is going to be the best thing. You want to come? Let's meet face to face. Let's talk about the issues you're having, and then we can, you know, try to problem solve and come up with the best solution or solutions. And that being said, I really need to get going on this, creating the next meal for the day. So if anyone has any direct questions of me, please feel free.
Okay, thank you, Oz. I know that you were broken up a little bit. We sound like a bad connection, but I know you're available to talk to anybody that would like to speak with you. And I know you have to go to start preparing your next meal. So appreciate the work you do. And if anybody needs Oz's contact information, please reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to provide his phone number or his email address. So thank you, Oz. Okay, so anybody else?
Thank you.
You're welcome. And anybody else before we close this topic and move on? Okay, thank you.
I have one quick thing, Chief. And this is like probably really obvious and kind of a no-brainer, but like the instability and the visibility of the houseless population that's hanging out downtown right now is like, in fact, just because they are houseless, right? Like we have plenty of community members who struggle with severe and persistent mental illness, who live all over Clatsop County, including in the Astor House, the Astor building, which is downtown. And they are housed and treated and stable, and folks don't notice, right? Like you don't see because it's not disruptive because they're stable. So I agree that we would love additional funding to support behavioral health in the community, and the treatment services are accessible. The outpatient treatment services are accessible. It's the housing piece that really makes these issues really disruptive and really visible. So I just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Shira. And I think that's an important distinction and clarification too. And I think the other thing, maybe a little bit of an epiphany for me, and please don't hold this against me coming from California, but California, when I worked in law enforcement there for 31 years, if we encountered an individual who needed to get some assistance.
I'm in a meeting.
It was very easy to get someone into mental health services. And we had, many of you have heard the 5150 Welfare Institutions Code, and it didn't take much of a threshold. In Oregon, it's different, and CBH's hands are tied. There's people that you and I all encounter or see that we feel are in a mental health crisis, but the reality of it is they haven't reached that threshold to deprive them of their constitutional right to freedom. And so it's an education of the public in terms of what CBH can do. We've had people in what we would think are severe mental health crisis, but they haven't quite reached that threshold. And it's not because they don't want to do something with the individual or want to help somebody, but they also have to work within the confines of the law. So I don't know, Shira, if I've mischaracterized that, please help me out. But
no, that was really helpful. Thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Absolutely right.
David?
I've been part of this group from the beginning and really here to represent business interests. I just want to underscore a couple of things as we're talking about this. We talk about the partnership with businesses. All of the things that we're talking about here require that we have a healthy economy, right? An unhealthy economy makes all of this worse. It makes those people that Andrea mentioned who are on the edge of being homeless, it makes them more likely to fall off that edge. If we don't have a healthy economy, we don't have the funds to fund the programs that CBH and others are doing. If we don't have a healthy economy here, all of this gets worse. And if we don't have a healthy downtown economy, we don't have a healthy economy in this community. So whatever we can do together to protect the business owners downtown, protect the experience of people, even if that experience is that people are incorrectly reading what they're seeing there, there still is a perception there. And if we don't have customers downtown, if we don't have thriving businesses downtown, all of this gets worse. So let's keep that in mind, please.
Thank you, David. That's a good point. Appreciate that. Okay, we're about halfway through our time, and I think we've covered one topic, so we'll probably need to move forward here. I do need to back up just a half a step and take care of one formality that I didn't do in the beginning. That's the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Thank you, Arlene, for taking those minutes. We appreciate it. So if someone would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
the minutes from the last meeting as presented.
Thank you, Councilor Rocca. Do I have a
Second, David
second?
Reed. Second.
David, second. All right, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. Meeting minutes have been approved, and thank you, guys. Okay, let's see, going down the list here. Let's see. Teresa, did you, I told you I'd squeeze you in here for a quick update on the warming center. Did you cover, or would you like to say anything else about that?
I just have a quick, we are open. We open for our first night of the season on Monday. If you have not been getting community alerts about that, I am putting our email in the chat. If you're on the phone, it's just astoriawarmingcenter@gmail.com. Real easy to remember. If you'd like to get on the list, just send us an email there and let us know. We also are posting daily updates to Facebook. We are still open on a weather dependent basis this year, since we only have 90 days a year. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Also doing community laundry days from 9 to 11 every Tuesday at the Astoria Mini Mart.
Great. Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks.
So for our next topic, David, is your hand up from a previous one, or?
Yes, fixing it now, sorry.
Okay, no worries. So for our next topic, we're going to talk about the liaison position, and I would just like to preface this topic. First off, there's going to be an introduction of a new member from CCA, and I'll let Viviana talk about that. But we'll tag team this with Susan, Viviana, and ultimately Jerome. Talk about some of the very productive meetings we've had. Some really good things coming out of those that I've actually been part of as well. And I appreciate being part of that group and doing some really good brainstorming with many of the members that are on this task force. This did start as one of our subcommittees, and I think one of our most significant contributions to date. So this will also cover the topic that's listed down below in the agenda under one of the subcommittees, the countywide liaison. We're going to wrap that all into this one, so we'll kill two birds with one stone. So anyway, with that, Viviana, I will turn it over to you and Susan, and just go ahead and we'll cover all things liaison related.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Chief Spalding. On behalf of Viviana, she wanted to apologize. She had an emergency meeting that she had to step off for, but she did ask me to introduce Jerome. So as our agency grows and expands our programs to help continue to serve the needs of our community, we're really excited to welcome Jerome Stegmans to our team as a program developer. And he'll be helping manage CCA's mobile services. So, for example, our community resource specialists, as well as our homeless liaisons. He comes to CCA with a great knowledge and great experience working with really diverse backgrounds. And we are very excited to have him on board with us. He has some information about the homeless liaisons. He's been working really hard to learn the ropes at CCA, learn all of our programs, get to know them really well. And he has some interesting numbers and statistics. And then when he's done, I would love to follow up with a success story so we can have a really positive conversation about our liaisons. So I'll go ahead and let you take over.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that, that wonderful introduction. Yeah, I'm new to the Clatsop Community Action, and I'm very excited to be a part of this project, which is a very daunting project, but it seems very important and an important time to be here. Also, just want to take a moment to thank everybody for the comments you made earlier, starting with Councilor Rocca and his, just identification of the real need for housing, and through everybody. There was a lot of great input. I particularly appreciate the difference between the short and long-term solutions, right? We have a lot of short-term emergencies and a lot of desire for long-term fixes to really big problems here. And keeping accountability and things moving forward, smoothly is going to be hugely important. Anyways, I'm still in onboarding process and getting to know the team and getting to know stakeholders and the community at large. So far, we're really trying to identify the hopes for this program, identify ways that our mission objective can harmonize with the other goals of the community, keeping in mind particularly the business owners, the police department, and the hospitals as well. Yeah, as everybody that's here, you know, and I'm gonna just read from my mission objective. This is the homeless liaison team is really, the way I understand it, is here to bridge your community systems of health and social services with the needs of homeless individuals and families, and to primarily do that through connecting the different agencies and resources and individuals together. Just want to call out something that Chief Spalding shared about just a little mention of an anecdote where you were talking about somebody who really needed mental health services, but it was impossible to get that person into services without police intervention. And I think this is a strong example of how good communication and collaboration can allow us to, you know, leverage our different areas together to get the best successes we can. And yeah, I just view this project as really trying to increase awareness and communication and connectivity, you know, and keeping that in mind. My first initiative as part of this team is to work with a group called Data for Change. It's out of CORE, which is the Center for Outcomes Research and Education related to the Providence healthcare system, but they're working with us to develop really deep data gathering, analysis, and implementation strategies for that. So what that means is that with good data practices, everybody in the community hopefully will be able to see a much clearer picture of what the situation on the ground is, who we're dealing with, what successes we're having, what struggles we're having as we go. Yeah, and before I go off too far, just a quick update on some numbers. Look like in October, our team had upwards of 300 different interactions with homeless individuals in the community. We served 80 people. Yeah, and I know we've had some great successes. I think Susan's going to share a story of a specific success that we've had recently.
All right. So just really quickly, kind of in wrapping up, I wanted to share a story, and I want to be really honest, there are a lot of opportunities within the homeless liaisons and opportunities for the unsheltered population, but I felt like this story really represented how social services, when working together, can really benefit a client quickly. So Jody Anderson, who is one of our homeless liaisons, made a really great connection at the Napa Food Pantry. The liaisons have spent a lot of time trying to work with local businesses, work with pantries, and really get the word out there about what they do, how they're available, how people can contact them if they have a non-emergency situation versus reaching out to the police if needed. So the food pantry actually reached out to her because they were serving a client who was a disabled veteran. The client had been living in his van. He had severe health care needs, and sleeping in his van had really caused his medical symptoms to worsen to a point where he was in need of a surgery. So Jody, she reached out, she contacted the Clatsop County Veteran Service Officer, knowing he was a veteran, to see if there was any sort of assistance available to help him with his VA healthcare needs. So Josh Davis, the Veteran Service Officer, assessed the client and reached out to the social services team here at CCA to see if there was any other services this veteran might qualify for. Within an hour of getting this referral, the CCA case managers had reached out to the client already. They assessed his needs. They were able to secure a hotel room for him and his service animal, and made arrangements to actually pay for that hotel room for 3 months. So this veteran was able to receive the care that he needed, he'll have the surgery that he needs, and he'll have a safe place to go afterwards to recover from that. And I share this story because it's not just a success story for the client. In my eyes, it represents success on a lot of levels. So it's community partners that are connecting with our homeless liaisons, which is what we wanted to see. That's success. The collaboration between our liaisons and our veteran service officer is success. The advocation that you're seeing with the veteran service officer for his clients is success. And ultimately, the biggest success is that this client had his needs met, and that's one less person on the street experiencing homelessness. So I felt that was really important to share with all of you today so that you knew just a small sampling of what our homeless liaisons are doing when they are on the street, boots on the ground, working with clients.
Well, thank you, Susan. I appreciate that update. And Jerome, welcome. And I would just like to add that I mentioned earlier that there's a work group behind the liaisons, and we've met twice now and had really good conversations. And I would say that, you know, for me, I was interested in clarifying what is the role of the liaisons? What do we expect them to do? At the same time, putting on my, you know, police chief hat and concerned about their safety and what kind of situations, you know, they should be able to respond to without law enforcement assistance. And so, you know, we've had some really good conversations, spent several hours on trying to refine the role of the liaisons. And, you know, I'm really encouraged by, you know, Jerome's addition to the team. He comes to the team with a lot of energy, so a lot of experience. And so that's going to be great. But the team consists of, in addition to myself, Viviana, Susan that just spoke, Jerome now, Chief Ham's part of that from Seaside, Jared Karnowski from CMH, and Bernice Moore. A good group of people with a lot of different backgrounds. And I think we're going to, you know, continually find ways to refine this program. And I suspect that this program will continue to grow. And we all know that two liaisons who, for the most part, respond to individuals together cannot effectively cover the entire county. They're spread pretty thin, but we appreciate what they're doing. And this really is a test case. And I think we will show that this will be successful, something that we can definitely grow. And at some point, I would, you know, we've had some early conversations about, can we get to a point where the liaisons are actually responding to a lot of the calls for service that the police are responding to? This is kind of a mini version of defund the police, which I'm supportive of, where we have the correct social service providers responding to individuals in need versus law enforcement. So I think that's, for me, is my personal goal of this program, is to expand it and get to that place. And I think it's very realistic. At the same time, always keeping in mind their safety, because there will always be calls that the police need to respond to. But I think this is a great first start. So anybody else would like to add anything to that topic? Kenny, anything else to add? You're good on that?
Chief, I think that's great. And I also see like some room for partnership with the homeless liaisons and the mobile crisis team. I know that they work pretty closely with the recovery allies right now in the community. But when we're talking about the mobile crisis expansion and potentially, you know, having more staff and being able to respond more quickly, if there are calls that the homeless liaisons are responding to and law enforcement isn't going with them directly, perhaps like a behavioral health clinician could accompany them as well. So just an idea. Yeah, no, that's a good point. And it kind of reminds me that maybe you or one of the people from your team should be part of this group here to make sure we're not missing that component. Because I know in the past, like we talked about, responding to some of the individuals outside of the lifeboat services, you know, if we engage the liaisons and like you said, the recovery allies, I think that's a great tool. So more to come on that, and I'll connect with you on that. Sounds good. Thanks.
I would just like to say quickly too, I have a long list of people that I would like to meet soon, and I'm reaching out as much as I can to collaborate and establish these kind of connections. But our team is really working on a easily referenceable list of criteria for what we are positioned really well to help with when you're looking for, who to call. Obviously, when you're in an emergent situation like Andrea that was describing earlier, you don't have time to review documents to decide who to call, but I am really excited about just making as many connections and establishing that list of criteria so people know what we're able to help with and what we're well positioned to do, and so make it easy to get in contact with us. And I'm going to be reaching out to lots of people just to try to establish relationships. And if anybody in here wants to connect with me directly, I'll put my email up in the chat just to invite that. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, Andrea, was that an old hand up or is that a new one?
Oh, that was a thumbs up to what Jerome was saying.
Oh,
Sorry.
gotcha. Okay. I'm not good at hand language, so sorry. Any other comments, thoughts on the liaison program? If anybody has any thoughts.
I just want to say one, just really quickly. I just wanted to thank Kenny for allowing our homeless liaisons to go do a ride along with him as well. It was really impactful, and they both had a lot of really great feedback from that.
Good. No, more of that, the better. So that's good. Good stuff. And if anybody else has any other thoughts or concerns that would like to pass along on the homeless liaison program, please reach out to any of the individuals I mentioned that are part of that group, and definitely include your input in the conversation. So thank you for that. Moving on, we don't have a representative from Helping Hands here today. I know they're very busy with the Bobby Lakes Hope Center. I did have a quick update from Alan that he sent me via email, so I'll just read this. It says, from Alan, our hope that it opens the first week of December. So this is in response to a question I had about the warming center at Seaside. It said, our hope is that it opens the first week of December. We have the building and the rent is paid for the year. We are working out the minor details to ensure that we can open the doors. It's a partnership between Helping Hands, CCA, Sunset Empire Parks and Recreation, and the city of Seaside. So just a little FYI, because I know some of you are monitoring the happenings in Seaside. And again, this is clearly a countywide issue, not just an Astoria specific. So with that, Kate Allen, you had asked to take a few minutes, so this is your time.
Thank you, sir. So I have had the opportunity over the last 4 or 5 weeks to work with an organization called League of Oregon Cities. Folks on the phone or on the call are familiar. League of Oregon Cities is kind of the industry organization for the 280 plus cities all around the state of Oregon. And in the 2021 legislative session, League of Oregon Cities and a number of other organizations, Chief Spalding, I think, was involved with public safety officers, involved in passage of House Bill 3115, which very basically says that local laws regulating sitting, lying, sleeping, or keeping warm and dry outdoors on public property that is open to the public must be objectively reasonable as to time, place, and manner with regard to persons experiencing homelessness. So for folks who were following the legislative session and the desire of advocates to have a right to rest bill, this stops short of that, but it does put some regulatory things on cities by 2023 to address that language. League of Oregon Cities is working proactively to create a homeless solutions resource online on their website that is engaged in sort of proactively providing resources for cities and counties and their social service partners and community partners to really have access to a rich trove of data, education about homelessness, mythbusters, some best practice through examples from around the state. I want to, give appreciation to folks in our community in Clatsop County, Monica and Viviana and Chief Spalding for providing some information that will become part of that. but I've also had the opportunity to see what's going on in communities around the state. So I will, in December, this resource will become live. There'll be an opportunity for anyone interested to participate in a webinar that kind of walks through what it is. I think what I've had a chance to see is that the kinds of conversations we've been having for 4 years are essential. And there are, sort of triggers for action that we might be able to learn from and get closer to some of the solutions to unsheltered homelessness, which is a lot of the topic of what we're talking about. I think one of the things that can benefit our community is, we've got a tremendous number of really strong providers. What we may lack is a sort of longer range strategic plan about what are our immediate needs and what do we want to think of longer term to address the needs of people experiencing homelessness, the needs of our businesses, the needs for a stable workforce and access to workforce housing. So thinking of our housing needs in a continuum. And I just want to be sure that I will give updates once that is available in December. I think the last thing I would say is folks are aware in that same legislative session that there were significant new resources, increases to resources to build affordable housing, to open navigation centers, et cetera. The more we have a cohesive picture of how we're short-term and long-term identifying and addressing, making a plan to address, the better position our community will be to attract some of those resources. So thanks for a minute. Happy to answer questions about that, but I will, as soon as there is that resource is live, I'll send that through Chief Spalding and then also send along info where folks can participate in kind of a webinar walkthrough of what the resource will be.
Great. Thank you, Kate. And I do appreciate being part of that group with you and Ariel from League of Cities. It's nice to be on the front end and have an opportunity for input. And I just a reminder to everybody, I'm also part of a larger group throughout the state involved with several chiefs and people, leaders from different cities throughout the state working on homeless issues so that we're not reinventing the wheel. So, we're all trying to navigate through the language on some of the legislative issues that came out after the last session and working with entities like the League of Cities so that we're all kind of working off the same page. That's my goal anyway. So thank you for that update. That's helpful. Any questions of Kate on that topic? Okay, thanks again, Kate. So next topic is subcommittees. We've formed some subcommittees that have kind of come and gone by the wayside over the past 4 years. Some of them we've kind of turned out maybe not so much a need, but we've done some of our better work, I think, through the use of some of the subcommittees. But many of the members that were part of the subcommittees are no longer part of the greater group, have moved on to other things. But we still, I did want to get an update from Jonah on the Clean Slate program and kind of where that's at. And we've already covered the countywide liaison. And I have a couple ideas and moving forward on a couple other committees, but part of it's going to depend as well on what we establish as our priorities towards the end of the meeting. So Jonah, can I put you on the spot and chat a little bit about where you're at on that?
Yeah, so the Clean Slate Committee was put together in early 2019. It was myself and then Raven and Alan from Helping Hands and Gabriella from the county. And then one other individual, I don't recall what her organization was, but we tried to meet and discuss the idea if there's barriers to people's housing being created by outstanding court fees or other fines that were being imposed. And that was, I believe, at the impetus, maybe Chief Spalding can correct me, of an individual. There was a particular case of a person who was having those challenges. And so it was trying to figure out if that was endemic throughout a larger part of the population that was in need of services. So through 2019, we did have regular meetings and discussed the issue, and also talked to the county court system and the judge there to try and get a better sense of if this was in fact a reoccurring problem. And it was very hard to pin down from the community standpoint of if these fines were being imposed and if people had a large number of them that were causing them to lose out on services or to be ineligible. And so what a lot of our conversation really focused on was it doesn't seem like the court was in any position or had any interest in trying to impose fines on people that couldn't pay fines. So there was a lot of effort already being done to avoid that. And then also, I think from 2019 to now, obviously things have changed quite a bit with these homelessness liaisons and different organizations that are doing a better job of helping track and introduce services to people too. So that work is really important, I think, to be able to help keep this idea, if there is the issue going on within the houseless population, that having these services in place and being in a trusted position to be able to find out that information. And it will definitely be probably a case-by-case solution to a lot of these things, because it doesn't seem like there's a large fine problem going on where more people are accruing larger and larger debt and then not having any recourse to avoid it. But again, too, maybe the resources that are in place currently might have a better perception and better ideas of if that's true or not, and if there is a need to address it.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that comprehensive update. And I agree. I'm not so certain that this has been a problem. I have not been hearing that people, are not able to get on with their lives because of excessive fines. For one thing, they're not being enforced. I do know that there was one individual, I'll just say his initials are CC. Kenny, I don't know if you're aware, of, I do believe some of the fines were wiped out anyway. I think we all know that, piling on fines on to somebody who can't afford to pay doesn't provide any benefit and doesn't necessarily, it actually probably, if anything, it makes a worse situation for them in terms of, getting the tools that they need to get back into a productive lifestyle. But so I don't know, Kenny, you have anything to add to that with Mr. CC?
Oh, not really. Mr. CC, has done middle of the road well, and he's working on maybe getting back into helping hands as well. And that, but yeah, overall though, really the fine reduction thing, to be honest, really didn't help him all that much, really. So, but it did help him a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and I know there was some pushback too from some individuals who felt that, is this an equitable system? Should some people's debt be forgiven, simply because they don't have the ability, they chose not to pay their fines, and somewhat of a separate issue. But I think unless somebody has some new insight, I don't see that there's appears to be enough of a need to advance that topic anymore, Jonah. But if anybody else would like to weigh in, so we can at least check that box.
I do know, as far as the individual that's being mentioned, that he and I have spoken, and one of the issues he's facing on top of the obstacles that he already had is that his credit is now tanked, which makes it even harder to get into housing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I could see that. Okay, well, again, John, I appreciate the update on that, and I do think that there's a parallel discussion in terms of alternative sanctions for individuals. So maybe there's a way to have certain sanctions to hold certain people accountable, but not necessarily with a fine, and part of a community service type thing that we've talked about, where allow people to be part of the problem or part of the solution and part of the problem. So to be continued. We'll explore that as we get further down the road. So.
Hey, Chief, I'd like to say though, I do like the community service component. That's something I have had people ask about. they're able to do the community service component a lot more than being able to pay fines and stuff like that. And they feel by doing the community service component that they're doing something to give back to the community to make up for what they've done in the past.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, exactly. I like that idea. And, you know, one of the things we even talked about at our liaison meeting yesterday was potentially even having the ability for liaisons to issue some kind of a community, I'll call it citation for lack of a better word, where they would be cited into a community of maybe even their peers and some other business people or whatever, where they would be directed to do certain things in the community. So anyway, just one thought, you know, it's alternatives to traditional formal law enforcement related sanctions. So, okay, moving on. I do want to talk a little bit. So last spring anyway, we did our survey amongst our group here in terms of, you know, a lot of different questions, but what should our priorities be? As our next meeting's in January, so we are already getting close to 2022. So I thought it would be helpful to revisit the topic of, you know, priorities. This meeting obviously took a lot more time than I had planned, but that's okay because it's been a great discussion. So I will just quickly share these slides, the 3 slides out of the slide deck that we shared last time, which talks about the priorities. I would like all of the membership here and the guests as well to take a look at these and kind of think what your own personal priority would be for the community. What's going to be the greatest impact? And I also think it's important to include what is realistic as well. I'm now looking to the membership here to, Ron, I see you, and I will let you give your update. I'm sorry, I slid you in there and just forgot it on the list. So to share what your priorities should be, and then or asking the group to what is the best way to parrot these down a bit, because they're pretty extensive lists and there's a lot of things on there, and I think if we pick off too many things, we'll accomplish nothing. So my thoughts are, if we can identify a few realistic things that we can accomplish over the next year, I think that would be a great goal. So again, in the interest of time, Ron, I did promise you that I would let you talk a little bit about the village and the village project. And so go ahead with that, and then we'll come back to this topic.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Yeah, so a subcommittee, we are a subcommittee, Class F Opportunity Village project, which is modeling after the Square One Opportunity Village in Eugene. So we're not creating a new wheel. And we are currently, this is our 2nd year of existence, and we are currently hopeful that we may be able to join hands with the Warming Center if we can align similar goals and visions, including a housing element. So we might be able to pick up a fiscal partnership with the Warming Center, them being a sponsor of our subgroup. And so we're hopefully that might happen. It won't happen right away because the Warming Center is currently in the process of setting up their mission goals and values. And we're hoping that we might be able to align and work with them. So I am hopeful in this interim time between now and the coming of the next year, with the consent of our advisory committee, that we might be able to put together a model. So we'll actually have a model transitional home. So this project in the future could be a pilot project. Once we have a model of a transitional home, then everybody can actually get their fingers on it and see what we're really talking about as a solution, a temporary solution for housing that's just temporary. We're dealing with a year's time, but it's a model that has worked in Eugene and hopefully will work in Clatsop County also. So thank you.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate your work on that. So thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and share the 3 of the slides that talked about the priorities that we addressed last time. We broke them down into 3 priorities. So I'm just going to put the screen up there for a little bit. I'll go down the list real quick. Not that you can't read it yourself, but that helps me time it to make sure you get a chance to see all the items. And then I'd like to just spend a couple minutes in terms of how we best identify which ones we should prioritize. So with that being said, everyone can see the priority 1 slide. Anybody not see it? Okay, I can't see anybody anymore. Mayor, can you see the slide?
Yes,
Okay,
you are
great.
sharing your screen.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we broke these down into 3 priorities based on the poll that we put out last spring. So promoting accountability, helping filling empty bellies source a building for a drop-in center, marginalizing POPs, securing housing, locating shelter for those that want it, recommendations to statutory entities regarding zoning laws, vacation rentals, property tax, incentives to develop ADUs for property owners, engaging the unhoused with services, mental health, etc., identifying a location as a potential navigation center and who partners with drop-in center, focus on a single resource-driven tangible item to deliver, follow through with new homeless advocates and guiding new liaison positions. Priority 2, sourcing land for a possible tent site, look into creating low barrier housing, supportive housing for mental health, substance use, etc. Daytime drop-in and resource center, providing wraparound services, increasing the days open for warming centers. Drop-in center, identifying the types of housing needed, transitional, permanent, supportive, low income. Assist the various agencies, entities in this field in our area of consolidating their efforts instead of multiple ad hoc citizen groups. Set guidelines for new advocates, increasing local capacity by identifying funding streams and lead organizations. And then priority 3 was educating our community on the mental health and houselessness crisis in our county, specifically how closely they're intertwined. Landlord outreach, specific area for camping with oversight, shelter, identify programs to help the unhoused get into and stay connected to services, designating a single spot for congregation assembly of homeless individuals seeking meals or other resources that is sufficiently equipped for that purpose, and identifying barriers to housing development. So I will send the slide deck out to the entire group, but at this point I'm looking for thoughts from our membership in terms of how we best want to come up with maybe a couple of priorities for the next year.
Chief, could you explain what POPs are?
Well, I would if I knew what it was. I don't. I was reading that and I was asking myself, what is that? So
Populations?
It's my assumption is
Yeah.
populations as well.
Okay, I'm hearing, yeah, populations and let's see here, where did that one go?
It was up on the priority 1 slide. It was
Priority 1,
marginalized
okay.
population.
Oh yeah,
or
marginalized pops. So marginalized populations, that would make sense if that's what that meant. So I don't know the context of it.
Thank you.
Kate?
Sure. Kind of from the perspective that I have, couple of observations. A lot of folks on this call or on this Zoom in this group are direct providers of services who will do some things. And we've talked about this, different roles that are at the table. I think what we lack is a sort of strategic vision for what we want to be doing across our agencies with support from direct providers, the things that public sector folks can be doing, and for the community to understand both our near-term and long-term needs and visions. So strategies like that or efforts like that have often been led by a government partner, often in the case of a community that is a strong county and several cities, led by the county. And I hesitate to say that because Monica isn't on the call, but members of this committee are essential stakeholders in that plan. I worry that until we have that plan that we collectively see our roles in, we're going to keep generating these lists of one-offs that are going to satisfy a short-term need, but not necessarily get at this solutions idea. So that's the way I would see this list, and then think about how could we as a community and a whole set of stakeholders think about putting some framework to this list.
Thank you, Kate. Appreciate that. Teresa, I saw your hand up, and then I'll get to you, Arlene.
Oh, that was a clap.
Okay.
Yeah, just echoing what Kate said. I totally agree. And that's what I would love to see is, I think that when Kate and I have talked, we've talked about like finding out where the gaps are, you know, and that, you know, a lot of times I think even the people that are in this group, sometimes I hear about things from the paper, you know, and I'm like, oh, great. Like there's just, you know, we have a limited amount of resources. So the more that we know what everybody else is doing, then we can see where we need to fill in and what, you know, what we all can focus on.
Okay, thank you. Arlene?
Yeah, Kate, I know that League of Oregon Cities is working on this issue. Are there examples of cities that have done a strategic plan that we could utilize rather than having to start from scratch?
Yeah, there sure are, Mayor Lemire, very, very strong examples coming out of groups similar to ours. So easy answer is yes. And it's important to say that beyond unsheltered homelessness, the plan addresses the full spectrum of housing needs. So it gets at the need for workforce housing that has our local businesses able to attract and hire people. It has, you know, permanent supportive housing for people who need that. So it is the full continuum of housing need that, you know, we need some plans around.
So I'll jump in here because I'm someone who is very fond of strategic planning, did a lot of it in my earlier career, and led the Maritime Museum strategic plan development over the last 2 years. Big fan of strategic planning. Also a big fan of not doing strategic plans when it's not the right venue. The county has, and I've got it up on my other screen right now, if you just Google Clatsop County Strategic Plan, you will see the Clatsop County Strategic Plan that they published just last year. They are starting a revised goal setting session. I believe I heard Monica say in a different meeting recently in January. Their strategic plan includes housing strategies for affordable housing. It includes aspects of supporting the homeless population with drop-in centers with multiple services and navigation centers, laundry, meals, public health services, mental health services, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the things I think this group would want to see in a plan, the county has in their current strategic plan, and we'll be revising it in January. And I would just point out, I personally would not support the city of Astoria doing a homeless strategic plan, because we are, one of 5 cities in the county, and then there's the unincorporated part of the county. I do, and I echo what Kate said about it. I feel bad Monica's not here because we're saying county should do this or that, and she's not here to defend. But the county, and I say that jokingly because they're actively working on these issues, but I do think the county is the proper oversight level for an effort that necessarily goes beyond the Astoria city limits. So that would be my 2 cents worth, and that this group would be the right group to provide input on what those priorities should be. But this group is just a collection of reps from different agencies who have their own funding sources and change of command and everything else. This group itself doesn't have a dollar in the budget. I mean, we don't have a budget. We don't have any authority to do anything other than act, as a team within our agencies. So I think the county really is I agree with Kate that the plan needs to be worked on, and I think the county is the right level to do it, and this group can provide really valuable input to that effort.
Mayor, do you have thoughts in terms of next steps, what you would like to see, with this group provide? I mean, would this be a subcommittee of a few people getting together and bringing back a recommendation to the greater group, or dedicating more time at the next meeting to discuss this? Do you have a preference?
I mean, I think maybe it would be valuable. We could send out the link to everyone to the county strategic plan and take a look at those aspects of their current plan that really are what we're talking about here, is the housing piece, the drop-in center, even childcare strategy, because that really relates to whether or not people can afford to go to work, if they can afford to put their kids in childcare and be able to have an income to pay their rent. So maybe I guess I would ask maybe people to look at the county strategic plan and then look at these PowerPoint slides that the chief is going to send out. I don't want to have redundant goals or.
Yeah, and Hannah, thank you, Hannah, for providing the link in the chat room. The links in the chat room, I'll include that with my email that when I send out the PowerPoint slides. And then maybe if everyone gets a chance to refresh your memories, what I'm hearing, Mayor, is that maybe at our first meeting in January, we could revisit this and make sure, like you said, that there's no overlap, and we can identify what would be maybe a couple of recommendations coming out of this group.
Yeah, and maybe just reach out informally to Monica before the next meeting to ask if she can let us know what the county's planning horizon looks like for 2022. If I heard that correctly, that they're going to be revisiting their goals in January or not, and ask her what does she think would be the best way for this group to get its input to, because Monica, facilitates the process of the strategic planning for the county, but it's the commissioners who are the ones who set the priorities and make the decisions for the county. And so we can ask Monica what's the best way for this group to get its input to the county commissioners.
Okay.
Just a quick practical question in that link. Thanks, Hannah, for sending that. Which of those priorities and actions covers a strategic plan for housing and homelessness? Do we know? Mayor Jones, do you have?
They've broken their plan into some broad areas: infrastructure, environmental quality, economic development, governance, and social services. I think most of them fall under the social services, although I have to look at it again, I think, to see whether their housing falls under economic development or just social services.
All righty.
But I would think what we'll be looking at is primarily the social services piece, housing strategies, drop-in center strategies. It's a fairly quick read docket. You can kind of skim through and figure out which pages to look at. It's only about 19 pages long, or maybe 29 pages long.
Great. All right. Well, we will do that then. I will send out those 2 items, and everyone can peruse that between now and the January meeting. So, all righty. So at this point, we have our members roundtable. Rather than going around and hitting up each individual, I'll open it up to our membership, and then we'll come back to our guests. So anyone from our membership, anything not on the agenda, or even on the agenda for that matter, that you'd like to share, bring up, add to the agenda for next time? Not all at once. Okay.
There you go. I just want to say just a big thank you to everybody's different points of view. It was really nice to hear business owners speak about the unsheltered population, but also have a deep desire to want to help others in need. I didn't hear anybody on here angry or frustrated or bashing, people who are unsheltered. So I appreciate that very much as somebody who works for an agency whose mission is to help those in need.
Thank you. And I definitely agree with you. And I will say that my experience over the last 4 years on this committee has been, it's always been a very respectful group, and people have always been considerate of other people's feelings. We all come from different perspectives. We all have different beliefs. And I think everybody's always been willing to talk and listen. And so I've definitely appreciated that. So thank you for sharing that. All right. Any other thoughts from membership or guests?
Well, thank everyone for participating today. It's a very good meeting. I thought it was very, very useful. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor.
Chief, I have a really quick, shameless plug. We, CBH, opened our rapid access clinic formally on Monday. We soft opened about a month ago, but it's actually formally open now. That's our Bond Street clinic in Astoria. And it's operating as a behavioral health urgent care. So when you think about sort of the continuum of care for physical health, and then you apply that to behavioral health, that's sort of the level of need that folks who would access the rapid access clinic would be at or in. So if folks are needing an urgent assessment, whether it's for SUD or behavioral health, then they can walk in and get same day services at the rapid access clinic, and it's open from 9 to 3 Monday through Friday.
Great. Thank you, Shire. I appreciate you sharing that. So, so our next meeting, and just as a reminder, because I did have a couple of questions about when this meeting was, we do post those on the agendas. They're always at the bottom of the agenda for the next meeting, and they're also part of the minutes. So if you're not sure, check those two sources or just reach out to me directly. I'm more than happy to let you know when the next meeting is. But right now we have the next one is slated for January 20th. We've been doing these on a every other month basis, and that seems to be working fine. A lot of good discussion today. I may not see some of you between now and January, so I would like to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays. Hope you all have a safe season, and I hope I do see many of you between now and then. So with that being said, until next time, everybody take care.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Chief.